Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another program by Inspirate. And I want to remind you actually that our programs are geared towards helping us as individuals dealing with conflicts, dealing with ourselves. And inshallah, we pray that the guests that we give or guests that we interview, inshallah, would inform and guide you. But the critical thing I ask of you is to confront your true self and ask yourself, who am I? What are my challenges? And one of the biggest challenges today is about people who have issues in relationships, about dealing with others, dealing with themselves. And therefore, we have a guest here, Ahmad, who is going to guide us in terms of how to deal with relationship dynamics, how to deal with conflict. Because the finest individuals who die peaceful deaths are often those individuals who have harmony in their life. So, Ahmad, welcome to the program. For the benefit of the viewers, give us a background about yourself and what do you do?
Jazakallah, Uncle Idris. Jazakallah for giving me the opportunity. From my side, I can say at the moment, I'm a CEO of a company called Impact Africa. We started a movement called #Impact Lives, and our idea is to take a very critical element called effective communication. And how do we take effective communication out to couples? How do we take effective communication out to families? And how do we take this message out to students and to people that would need this in their everyday life? That is what I'm currently doing. But from a professional perspective, I am in the ICT environment, and I've been doing that for 30 years plus.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah, you speak about effective communication. And what do you mean by effective communication?
So, Uncle Idris, to be honest, in the corporate environment, in order for you to succeed, you needed to interact with a lot of people, right? And most of the time, you needed to interact with different cultures, different personalities, especially within the workspace. And I always found it very challenging in order for me to get effective and to be able to give my message in a way that resonates. And I think that's the part that I focused a lot on. During our times, we were lucky during corporate to travel quite a bit. And I ran into a gentleman by the name of Nigel Risner. He is what we call a chief zookeeper. He's based out of the UK, and he's a world-renowned motivational speaker. And my wife and I were lucky to sit in one of his seminars where he focused a lot on effective communication. And when we say effective, we mean on an everyday basis, we all communicate. Like I communicate with you, I communicate with my kids, I communicate with my colleagues. But am I effective? Meaning that when I'm delivering a message, is it resonating with the person that I'm communicating with? And that's the part that's quite exciting.
Okay, you speak about effective communication. How important is it to know yourself in terms of how you're communicating? How important is to know the other person? Because from what you are telling me, I'm making an assumption that you do not communicate the same way with everybody.
Correct. So effective communication per se means understanding yourself, number one, understanding the person that you're speaking to, and making sure that when you speak to them, the message is delivered. Unfortunately, we're all not the same personality types. We have 4 different types of personalities. I've studied quite a few over my long career. And what we've realized is that when you're communicating with different personalities, you got to adapt a bit on how you communicate with them in order for the message to resonate with them. So,
okay, we'll come to those 4 personality types in a moment. So, are you saying that in any given situation, for example, you are going to go for an interview for a job, for example, or you're going to, inshallah, go for a proposal for marriage. So, is it important to get background information about them, the people that you're going to talk to, and to what extent would that inform what you say and how you say it?
No, it's critical. Look, especially with a life partner, it's somebody that you're going to spend in the rest of your life with, somebody that's going to share your values and share your life with you. And it's critical for you to know who you're dealing with. And I think the biggest thing for us is that a lot of us, Uncle Idris, we put up what we call a facade, if I could use that word. A facade is something that you portray who you are to others, but deep down, you're not really that person. And I think that's the biggest challenge that a lot of us have. Even in the workspace, right? You'll be dealing with colleagues and you'll be dealing with people, but you don't know whether you're dealing with that person with an accurate manner, and more importantly, is it the right person that you're dealing with? And I think with the facade and the walls that we put up, it becomes very tricky for us to try and get to that person. And what I've studied and what we've learned over time is that there is ways for you to break down that wall.
We'll talk about that in a moment, right?
Sure.
Now, often, for example, in a situation of conflict or disagreement, and a person may realize, you know what, the situation was bad, but they often say, you know what, it's me. It's me. That person knows me, knows that these are the triggers. These are things that make me angry. I think what the person did was provocative, you know. Now, those situations, to what extent are they accurate? Do we as individuals say that we have the ability to adapt, to adjust to different situations?
You see, we do have the ability to adjust, but when do we adjust and when do we use the right tactic? That is the key question. Sometimes when we're delivering a message or when we're communicating, we think we're communicating in the way that resonates, but unfortunately, it's the only way we know how to communicate. And we're assuming that the rest of the party is understanding or getting the message that you're trying to deliver. So it becomes very tricky. And there's a lot of other things that settle with that, right? We've got cultural differences. We've got cultural backgrounds. We've got different lifestyles. We've got, from a financial perspective, we've got people from different financial backgrounds. So all of these things create more complexities. I think the biggest thing for me, Uncle Idris, is I'm not a person that likes complex things. I like to have things simplified in order for me to adapt. The minute anything complex comes in, I tend to shut down. And I think that was one of the reasons why it was difficult for me to communicate and to get these messages out. And once we start mastering these techniques, and they are techniques, right? My wife always says that after language, effective communication is the most important skill. And it's a skill that you could learn. Similarly to riding a bicycle, if you know how to do it and if you know how to apply these skills, those are the things that we can use in our everyday life.
You know, we'll come to those aspects which are so critical in what you are sharing. For example, I mean, when I was preparing myself and my friend Mohammed Wahid, 2 books that we wrote on the art of public speaking. And we realize, even from the prophetic perspective, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that he knew the audience on a very personal level. And you find that the Sahaba used to say, it is as if the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was talking to me. But often you find that in this day and age, that people are called to speak in other towns. They are called to speak on some sensitive issues, but they get no information from the town. They do not speak to individuals, you know, about that. What are the perspectives? What are the incidents regarding certain issues that have taken place? They don't have the discussion, and they come and just lecture and sermonize, right? So from what you are saying, what you're going to share, it does not only help in interpersonal relationships, it also helps in terms of when you're doing a presentation, right? And I'll just talk about an incident that took place in my own life. When I became a teacher of English, and one of my mentors, Smail Katrada, asked me whether he could listen to one of my lessons. He was an inspector. So I said, yeah, no problem. And this goes back many years, actually. I'm telling you, I think it was in 1976 or 77, thereabout. And so he came to the class, and I thought I was giving an exciting lesson, you know. I was quoting Shakespeare. I said, I wear my heart upon my sleeves for doors to peck at. I am not what I am. In following him, I but follow myself. I say, yeah, we see this dichotomy, the external manifestation of his inner turmoil. It was the 9th class. I said, wow, you know, I thought I was brilliant. And when I came out of the class, he had a very quizzical look,
Yeah.
He asked me one question: do your pupils understand you? And like a naughty boy said, I don't know. When I went back to the class, and I've been teaching them for a month, they said they don't understand me. So that was like a moment, of inspiration, right? So I think it's important. So there we have it, our beloved brothers and sisters, the whole issue about effective communication. And it's important to listen to yourself. It's important to understand the power of words. It's very important to understand looking at people's body languages, to understand who you're going to engage with. In that way, you're going to have, inshallah, a dynamic relationship. We'll be back immediately after this break for more insights into a powerful aspect of communication. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, I'm having a very animated discussion with Brother Ahmad, who was talking to us about communication. I want to come back to something that you referred to, and I said we'll talk about it further. When you speak about personality types, share some of the personality types.
No, so Uncle Idris, what we picked up a lot on personality types, and there's been a lot of programs around personality types over time. Some people believe blood groups are personality types. You've had a lot of programs over time. And what we realize is that there's 4 distinct personality types. And if I could just for a high level tell you, for those personality types, for you to understand them and for you to know who you're speaking to, for example, I'm a certain personality type, but when I speak to you or a crowd, I'll only be resonating with 25% of the guys. The rest of it would not be. And that's why it's important for us to understand these personality types. So over time, what we've realized is that they can get very complex, right? You have your introverts, you have your extroverts, it's your body language, it's how you deliver messages. All of these become part of being effective communication. But if we zoom into personality types, you have programs that would tell you your personality types via colors. You have programs that will tell you your personality type via alphabets. There's a whole lot of programs. But what we wanted to do was to make sure that your personality type is something that's easy to resonate and easy to remember over a period of time. So we used analogies of animals. And what we do have is we have 4 personality types based on animals. And I think the one is the lion personality type. Then and just to picture the lion, it would give you a lot about their personality. Those very strict, determined, one way to do things, which is my way, very difficult to sway them out of it. A lot of them find them to be forceful and difficult to deal with. And on the opposite of that, you have what we call the dolphin personality type. These are the ones that are far more softer, and these are the ones that are more in tune with your emotions and understand a lot about that. We have 2 more other personality types. We have the elephant personality type, which is quite detailed. They love information, prior information, later information, and they tend to ask a lot of questions in between, which becomes a bit tiring. And then my favorite is what we call the monkey personality type. They are the ones that are extremely bright, extremely playful and manipulative. So I think if you understand these personalities, and if you go into detail to spend some time to go through each personality, and you look around yourself, whether it be at home, whether it be with your spouse, with your family, with your kids, you quickly see how these personality types stand out within those individuals. And then you can use that to be able to deliver messages in a way that resonates with them.
Okay, a question to be asked.
Sure.
You find the person who is a lion
Yes.
in the public arena,
Yes.
and the workplace, and often when he comes home, he's like a lamb.
Yeah.
He's tame.
Yes.
So now, Sheikh Ahmad Didat,
Yes.
he once said that I'm maybe the president of IPCI, but when I'm at home, I'm the vice president. Right? So now, if you look at that now, which is the truer reflection of the individual, which is the authentic personality now.
So basically, what we believe in our programs is we have two types of styles. One is what we call an adaptive style, and one is what we call the natural style. So I always use a Sunday as an example. The natural style, if there is nobody around and it's just you alone on a Sunday, that is the person that you are in. And your adaptive style over time, whether it be your work, whether it be your environment, whatever it might be, has created this adaptive style within yourself. For example, I might be a person that not love detail. I like to do things very high level. But when you move into an environment and you become an auditor by profession, you've got to be detailed. And that is the adaptive style. So what we pick up is that a lot of the guys use their adaptive style on a daily basis, and the natural style is the one that's hidden quite a bit. But you know the old saying, Uncle Idris, if you want to know somebody, travel with them or live with them. You can only put up your adaptive style for a certain period of time. And thereafter, it becomes very exhausting. And the true personality that you are really steps out.
Okay. So, these are so important things because many people, and this is my observation, it is anecdotal, not that I've done some research, have a unidimensional approach. No matter who they are talking to, they have the same approach. And whilst it may resonate with a few, but others may find it repulsive. Others may find it, I think it's very demeaning, the way he is talking to us.
That's true.
So, in the end, should the home, should the schools, also there is what you call nature and nurture, should they play a part in helping people to understand the dynamics of relationships, to understand the dynamics of communication, to understand, because a critical thing in all of this, there has to be an element of trust. The person must trust you. The Greeks speak about ethos, your credibility. How important is what I'm saying?
No, it's critical, Uncle Idris. Remember, when you speak about trust, people are not going to drop any guard down unless they totally trust you. And I think the biggest thing in relationships nowadays is trying to get that guard to drop. And we believe this is a human skill, right? I don't even call it soft skills anymore. We speak about hard skills and soft skills. I think this is a human skill. It's an art that everybody needs to understand. So when you start studying these personality types, you realize that they influence every aspect of your life. If you talk about your marriage, if you speak about how to influence your kids, you speak about a teacher teaching students, every one of them need to use the skill in order for them to become effective in what they do. And we speak about so many programs around families and couples and being in a relationship that's beneficial. A lot of these relationships, the foundation that they base it on is communication. Whether you speak about your love language, whether you speak about the things that you need, your aspirations, your plans for the future, everything has got to do with how you communicate that message to each other.
Okay. I want to come down to a little more mundane level.
Sure.
And as you were speaking, this idea came to mind. You find that, I often tell people, you cannot treat your kids equally, but with equity. People say, what do you mean? I said, well, the needs of each child is different. How important is for a parent to understand that every child is different.
Sure.
So I need to communicate differently. Some of them may require a little more pampering. Others may require a little more assertiveness. Some of them may have low self-esteem. The other person may exude confidence. How important is for parents, for example, because in the end, this is a program for families and for the community at large. how important is for the parents to understand not only their own children, but also to understand themselves?
I think the biggest mistake we make as parents is applying the same type of principle across the board. It's we only knew one way of communicating, and that was the way that would become a standard. Your wife would know a way, and then obviously you got the grandparents and your aunts and your uncles that step in. That brings all of these complexities. But it's a critical point, Uncle Idris. For example, if I look at my kids, I've got 5 different kids, and each one of them have completely different personalities. And in order for me to resonate or to get the maximum out of each one, I've got to communicate with them in a different way. They all have their individual needs, as you say. Some of them will need a bit more pampering, some of them need a bit more attention, and some of them can run on things on their own where they need very little impact from your side. So it's a critical point. But I think it all boils down to the 4 personalities. And if you tend to understand the traits of each one of those personalities, then you see how you can communicate with them differently.
Okay, we'll come to your program in the next segment, right? Now, I've also found this. I found that people, when they have issues and they say, well, I'm not prepared to change. They must change. Why should I change?
Sure.
Because people are comfortable with who they are. And, as someone said, that I can appreciate when a child is afraid of the darkness, but I cannot forgive an adult who is afraid of the light. Some of them are afraid of this new world they will get into. If they were to change, they'll become more vulnerable. Why is it that people are reluctant to change? Why is it they're reluctant to accept criticism?
It's engraved in us for over a long period of time that the way we communicate is the way we feel is correct. It's like a bad habit, Uncle Idris. I'm trying to break a habit of having too much of sugar, and if I have to release Coke and drink water over a period of time, it doesn't happen immediately. It takes time for you to do that. And one of the 5 points we speak about and we always talk about is make sure that whatever you learn, you implement. And that's the thing that we need to do. A lot of us learn these skills. A lot of us understand it, but very few of us implement it in our daily lives. I've spoken to a lot of couples, couples that have been together for years, some of them been together for decades. And the key is never to change the person, but more to accept the person for who they are. We all have flaws, Uncle Idris. None of us are perfect, right? Whether it be in our deen, whether it be in our daily life, we have our flaws. But I think it's important for us to understand the person and accept the person and try and focus on the acceptance as well, aside from just resonating and communicating. And I think I call it the 80-20 principle, right? You'd have a lot of us that are stuck in our ways 80%, and we can adapt the 20. But if you're asking a person to do it the other way around, it becomes extremely difficult. And I think acceptance becomes a very important key in order for you to be successful in these relationships as well.
Yeah, so I think the point that you are making, that in life, you should be adaptable.
Yes.
In life, you should understand the context in which you are. You should be aware of the context. You should be aware of people when you're engaging with them, how they are responding. For example, when you're talking to someone who is sitting there, free, he's relaxed, and suddenly when you begin to speak to him, you suddenly find that he is folding his arm, and all of that, you realize there's some kind of resistance.
Sure.
So you need to, in other words, what you are really saying, correct me if I'm wrong, that you got to penetrate the barriers. You got to, so you got to remove the impediments. So my beloved brothers and sisters, I'm really enjoying this discussion to understand the complexities of human beings, and to show that if you have the ability to adapt to situations, you'll be able to connect with the hearts of those individuals. We'll be back immediately after this break, and in the next session, we want to speak a bit more about the adaptive personality, and especially the zookeeper, right? Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yeah, am I talking about effective communication? I'm speaking to Brother Ahmad. I want to just elaborate on something before we go on to the issue of the zookeeper. I remember when I first met you a few months ago, it really resonated with me because, in the end, you find people's happiness is determined, of course, praying and all of that, largely on relationships. His relationship with himself, and horizontally, relationships with his family, relationships in the workplace, also vertically, your subordinates and superordinates. So, in the end, uh, that is very, very critical. Now, is there a way to guide, to help people? I remember when you shared with us the concept of the zookeeper. For me, it did resonate. Could you just elaborate a little on that?
Sure, Uncle Idris. So what we've picked up over time is that when it comes to effective communication, as I told you, there's a lot of programs that are out there. And one of us, and I was guilty of this myself, right? Go through the program, enjoy it, but never ever take those principles and apply it in my daily life. I always found them to be a bit more complex, and I was looking for something easier for me to implement. I'm always looking for a shortcut. And when I met with Nigel, and he did a program with couples. So I was privy to be there with my wife, and we went through the program with him, and we picked up that the animal analogies became so much more easier to remember and to apply in our daily lives. And the book that he wrote, it's a book that he wrote that it's not a book that will teach you these things, but more like a reference guide that made it easier for us. So if you want to hold a conversation with a certain personality type, these are the guidance that you do it. If you want to have a meeting with them, this is how you go about doing it. If you're trying to sway them or to change their minds or to influence them, this is what you should do. So it became like a reference guide for us to use. And I brought that and I implemented it in my daily life, right? And it's helped me from a dean perspective. It helped me better my relationships at home with my family. And more importantly, it also helped me in my career, in trying to apply for positions and influencing people within the workspace. So I think it became a very powerful tool. And a lot of the guys ask me, what is the success, for good relationships, whether it be both personal or professional? And I always speak about the 5 elements. And I think the biggest element is for us to be, to have gratitude, right? To make shukr to Allah for everything that He has given us, every gift, every bounty that He has given us. And I always say people are different. They're not difficult, they're actually different.
So, okay, what I want to do for each of that, let's talk a little first. The first one is gratitude. Yeah. In fact, I also found when sometimes people forget there are many things they need to be grateful for.
Correct.
And once they recognize that, you find that they have more peace of mind, they're more tranquil, and they are thankful. And in that way, you find they are able to deal with challenges, and they say, you know what, I don't really have reason to complain. Correct. When I consider this abundance that I have.
No, and gratitude is important, right? Once we start focusing and zooming in on that, I had a guy that asked me once, how do I zoom in an area so that I can say I feel grateful? Because sometimes I'm grateful to all of the things. And I said, just take any portion of your life and zoom into it. I used to always tell the guy, if you're getting dressed for the morning for work, the fact that you're in a home and you've got a roof over your head, you can make shukr for that. If you're going to go have a shower, you've got cold and hot water out of a tap, you can make shukr for that. And every element thereafter, if you've got clothes to put onto your body, that alone is a gift. And we start zooming into these small areas of our lives, we tend to realize how grateful we could be. So that's the one element. The other element of effective communication I always speak about, and it's a big phrase from my mentor, is be in the room. A lot of the guys say, yeah, but I am here. But we're not talking about physically, we're talking about mentally, are you there? A lot of us are absent because of the amount of distractions that we have in today's world. You've got technology, you've got phones, you've got iPads, you've got your work, you've got all of these things playing on your mind. And what happens is that you tend to be out of the room. And if you can perfect the art of being in the room, like if something is happening at home at the moment, I'm in zero control over it. But what I am in control over is this conversation that the two of us are having. So it's critical for me to be in the room with you now and giving my full focus on that. And I think that is a key element a lot of us suffer with.
Okay, what you're saying is such a strong Islamic principle, because our Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, whenever he engaged people, he was present.
Yes.
And the message he was giving,
Yes.
I'm concerned about you, I validate you,
Yes.
I appreciate you, I acknowledge you.
Yes.
And that is so fundamental if you want to have effective communication.
100% with our children, right? How many times do we tell them, "No, I'm busy now. No, I can't do this right now." And we don't realize the ripple effect that has on an individual. We then speak about acceptance. We touch briefly about acceptance and not trying to change people, because a lot of the times I hear young couples, especially when I speak to young couples during a program, you'd hear them say, "No, he doesn't want to change for me." Why are you expecting him to change for you? Are you not accepting him for who he is and all of the personality traits and the value that he brings to this relationship, instead of him making him to be yourself? So acceptance is a key thing.
You see, the issue of acceptance for me is fundamental in any relationship. If you have not had the acceptance, if you do not accept the other, that is going to be a barrier. In terms of everything else, you'll be so consumed by it,
Yes.
then you'll be very superficial.
100%.
You will be pretentious. You'll be pretending to listen to the other, because deep down, you have resentment.
Sure.
You do not accept the person. I think that's very important for us to understand, that we are unique individuals. We are different from each other,
And it will only last for a certain period of time, Uncle Idris,
Yeah.
before you actually get tired of putting up that facade, as I said. So that is a critical element. I'd like to park the zookeeper one, because I believe that's a nice topic to talk about. I just jump to the last one, is that it doesn't matter where you are. Forget about the past, because there's nothing you can do to control it, or there's nothing you can do to change it. But if you live in the present now, you can learn these principles of effective communication or being grateful and start applying these into your daily lives. I promise you, everyone that we've done programs with, aside from that, people that have come back to me, family members that I've done these things with, on a social perspective, just to say that the impact that it's had on their lives is life-changing. So we've been called out to a lot of programs to come in and speak on effective communication, because it becomes a fundamental in a lot of topics. I was invited a few months ago to speak about mental health and how mental health is becoming important, and how effective communication plays a critical role in how we can assist and help people from a mental health perspective. And what I realize is that a lot of the guys want and they're yearning for these skills, but unfortunately we cannot afford it. These skills are not readily available, or a lot of the students cannot afford to purchase a book or any knowledge around that. And I think that's when we started #Impact Lives, to say, what can we do to take this message out to whoever it might be, and to be able to change their lives.
You see, one of the things that I was engaged in or thinking about as you were speaking at this moment, right, is the fact that many individuals are not prepared to invest in themselves,
Sure.
are not prepared to embrace skills that are not peripheral.
Yes.
They are fundamental in terms of the way you relate to others and the way you relate to yourself. And in fact, it is precisely because of that that you find that marriages break off, our homes are dysfunctional, there are issues in the workplace between the CEO, the manager and his subordinates. In fact, in one study that I came across, the 68% of the individuals who leave a company is because of the relationship with their line manager.
Line managers.
Can you believe that? I mean, that for me was so revealing, you know.
No, it is. And I think the ripple effect that it has on us, the minute we can't be effective at work, then it starts to create those insecurities amongst ourselves. And we tend to carry these insecurities over into our personal lives and vice versa, right? Whatever we're going through in our personal lives, no matter how you try to separate it, you bring it into the workspace. And that's why it's important for us to invest in this.
So my wonderful viewers, I would like you to confront yourself and ask yourself, in your relationships with the individuals, with your family members, do you feel like an outsider? Do you feel you are part of this family? And if you feel like an outsider, to what extent do you think you are responsible for it? To what extent perhaps you are not perceived accurately? And that is a fundamental, inshallah. In the last segment, inshallah, I want to just focus a bit on the zookeeper analogy that you referred to, inshallah. We'll be back immediately after this break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahmad, in the last segment, I think from what you have said, now if I could just try to summarize it, the whole idea that we have different personality types, you got to understand your own personality and the personality of others if you want to be an effective communicator. And if you are effective, it will help you in your personal life, it will help you at home, the school, the institutions you belong to, and even in the business world. So I want to focus a bit on the last segment on the concept of zookeeper.
Gee, so Uncle Idris, what we do from a zookeeper perspective, as I touched on very lightly earlier on, is that there's four personality types that we believe in the principles, and it's the lion, the elephant, the monkey, and the dolphin. Those are the four personality types, and we always use the story of a zookeeper. You don't see a zookeeper going in the morning to work and opening the lion enclosure and giving the lion a hug and feeding the lion fish or feeding the lion grass. I don't think he'd last within the first 2 minutes. So how he behaves and what he does when he's in the lion enclosure is very different to what he does when he's with the elephants. Whereas if he goes to the dolphin, naturally you'd want to jump into the water and you'd want to hug them and you'd want to give them some fish and do things like that. And very similarly, we use those analogies of being a good zookeeper when it comes to these personalities. The traits are quite unique, so it's easy for you to understand and spot these. I've got a 7-year-old that can spot personality types without them speaking. The other day I was at the park with her and we were looking at all of the kids, and she could immediately tell me, Daddy, that is a lion personality and that is an elephant. And I was quite intrigued. And I said, no, Zeba, tell me a bit more. How do you know that those are there? She says, when you look at the kids, and a lot of us got kids at home, and we know you'd have the one child that would take charge. You know, the one would say, no, we're playing this game. Everybody else go in the back. You sit here, you do this, you do that. That is the natural leader, the person that would want to take charge, which is the lion personality type. And then you would have the one that's the peacemaker. You know, the one that would always be saying, no, maybe we should play those games and try and bring the two groups together. And that is now what we call the elephant one, the one that's very detailed and wants everybody to be together. We also have the personality types of the monkey, right? Those are the ones where the parents say, oh, my child is very naughty. That's the naughty one. It's because he realizes a lot of the kids' center of attraction is that one particular toy. And he's not center of attraction. So he would grab that toy and run. And he is very adaptive.
I'm thinking of my days as a kid,
And those are the ones that are very playful and they're very manipulative. And a lot of us see them as the ones that are the troublemakers. And the dolphin personality type, she tells me, is the one that if somebody falls, you'll see them hugging them, dusting their pants, taking a tissue to wipe the eye. So it's easy for you to quickly spot these personality types based on the traits that they are. So the zookeeper principle says, understand the traits, understand that we have different animals within the zoo. And when you're going to be with them, think like a zookeeper, not like an elephant. A lot of the times, I'm a very detailed elephant. They call us annoying because we ask so many questions. And by the time you get to the end, it's exhausting. And my wife, unfortunately, is a lion personality type. So they don't have time for this. They just want very high level information to absorb, and they will ask you for more if they require that. So that is the zookeeper principles, and it's quite fun because what it does is it teaches you that step back and have a look at the personality type, and when you're engaging with them, engage with the way that resonates with them.
It's such a fundamental point in the sense that you do not make a predetermination. You do not say, well, I'm going to go to that place. I'm going to go for the meeting. This is what I'm going to do, right? And then you realize if you're a person that observes personality, who understands the culture, the ecosystem there, and you could feel it, the ambiance is not right. So you say to yourself, you know what? I'm going to just sit for a while.
Yes.
I want to observe and I want to listen. And then what happens then at an appropriate time, you know what to say and how to say it. So how important is timing?
Very important, Uncle Idris. Some of us don't have the luxury to sit down, right? I come from a sales background. So immediately I'm being told I've got to do a sale with this particular person. And over the 2 years of COVID, everything was done over Zoom or Teams. And I've got to deliver this presentation. And naturally, I'm an elephant. So the elephant would want to have a lot of information. So my slide deck would be like 36 pages or 40 pages because I don't want to miss anything. But what I don't realize is I'm presenting to a lion. And if you don't get his attention within the 3 to 30 seconds, you've actually lost him. So it's important for you to do your homework on these individuals, and timing is critical. So if you are doing a presentation for the lion, the idea is try and keep your key points that you want to deliver in the first slide so you don't lose him. And there might be other personality types sitting in the room that you'd need to try and deliver the rest to. So it becomes a bit tricky, but once you start mastering the art and you start using it in your daily life, you find it to become extremely critical. Timing is everything.
Yeah. The issue of, you look at Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and the most powerful words of the Quran, and next to that is the words of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam inspired by Allah. And when you look at some of the things that he said, you could write essays upon essays about it. And it's such a powerful thing. The economy of words, knowing the meaning of words. And I think that's fundamental. So how important is making our children articulate, making them confident, and making sure they are avid readers? Because it is not fortuitous or by chance that the first ayah to be revealed was Ikra, to read, to contemplate. How important is it?
It's critical, Uncle Idris, but we also have different personality types that find it. For example, the elephant personality type would love to read.
Yeah.
They, in fact, would read a book 2 or 3 times. But we also have the monkey personality type. The attention span is very low. So if you're going to read to them, they'd prefer to listen to a book instead of reading a book. So there is ways that we need to adapt to our kids in order for our messages to resonate with them. So it is critical and it is important. And I always say when we do these programs, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is the best example of an effective communicator. He had to communicate messages in the times where people were abusive and used to hurl insults at him. But yet he kept his calm and he be able to deliver those messages in a time that was critical for people.
Because I'm a teacher, I was a teacher, and I love teaching. I think the point that you make is so important even for teachers to understand the attention span of kids, to understand that the lecture method is the least impactful method of teaching.
Correct.
And then you got teachers who sermonize or talk all the time and they feel they delivered a lesson. It's not so much what you said, but how much was understood. It's not so much, how much of teaching has taken place, but how much of learning has taken place.
100%.
And that is very, very fundamental. I think from the program that you speak about, it makes you self-aware, it improves your competence, it will improve on relationships, it will improve on teamwork, it will make business companies, for example, far more productive. Ahmed, what are your concluding words, Ahmed?
So the concluding words is that we've made it as simple as possible. So a lot of these things sound complex and
Yeah.
they sound difficult to learn. But what we have spent a lot of time is how to simplify this. So it's easy to use for a 9-year-old, or it's easy to use for somebody who's in their late 80s that wouldn't want to change. So we've created the program that way. But the program is not about that. To me, the message is about impacting people's lives positively. And I think if we can, if a program like this can assist a person, I've had 2 people, Uncle Idris, that came to me and said that they were contemplating suicide because of complexities in relationships. And after a program like ours, actually saved them from doing things like that. So if we save a person's life, or if we save a marriage, or if we save a family, and this message is delivered to the people and they can utilize that message, that is the impact that we want to have. And it's called #Impact Lives.
Ahmad, Jazakumullah for a very, very stimulating discussion. So my beloved brothers and sisters, I want to remind myself and to remind you, as Inspirate, we want to have programs that will impact on you positively. And psychologists have said, and I want to remind you, if you do not change within the first 48 hours, it's unlikely you will change. So let us all contribute to the healing of the Ummah. The Ummah is bleeding. So we want to discuss programs that are relevant. I pray, inshallah, all goes well. Shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.